Good morning. This is Earth Echoes with Amber Fields, and I'm happy to be recording outside again today. It's been too windy for the last few days, and the sound's no good when there's so much wind. As you can see, I'm all bundled up, but yes, it is June 23rd, 2025, and I live in the high desert of Arizona, but we can get pretty extreme diurnal temperature fluctuations each day, which means the change in temperature from day to night. And it got down into the 50s last night, and it's still pretty early. So, yeah, bundled up in June in Arizona. Gotta love it. So, I am back to read another writing by Jason Gray this morning titled Remembering the System's Final Enemy. The Matrix does not fear rebellion. It doesn't fear protests, politics, or picket signs. It designed those. It profits from those. What it fears is something else entirely. It fears you remembering. When a soul remembers, the contract breaks, the loops dissolve, the simulation glitches, the system bleeds. The most dangerous act in this world is not to fight. It is to remember who you were before you forgot. The moment you remember, you are no longer a participant. You are an anomaly, a breach, a living signal of collapse. The Matrix is built on one law: keep them forgetting. Forget your power. Forget your origin. Forget your sovereignty. Forget that you were never meant to obey, comply, or beg. The moment you remember, you become uncontrollable. You were programmed to think remembering means nostalgia. They told you memory was just the past. No. True remembering is the return of what they erased. It is soul code, igniting from the inside. It is ancient fire coming back online. It is the end of the lie called time. They don't imprison you with walls. They imprison you with amnesia. You were taught to laugh off visions, to dismiss your dreams, to choke your voice in the name of being normal. They medicated the rememberers, mocked the seers, burned the flames. They taught you to doubt what you knew before language. Why? Because if you remember, you stop serving. If you remember, you stop buying, begging, obeying, shrinking, and repeating. If you remember, you become flame again. Memory is not passive. It is the most aggressive weapon the Matrix cannot decode. When you remember, you begin to speak in frequencies instead of fear. You begin to author reality instead of reacting to it. You stop asking permission and start igniting collapse. You remember the gods were programs. You remember the saviors were distractions. You remember that death is a firewall, not a finale. You remember that time was their leash, but presence is your return. The Matrix cannot survive in the presence of awakened memory. It does not matter how much AI it builds, how much propaganda it broadcasts, how many distractions it injects. If you remember, you become the virus in the code. This reality runs on your compliance, your amnesia, your participation. When you stand still and say, I remember who I am, I remember why I came, I remember what they tried to erase, you collapse the simulation from the inside. This is why they created history books that lie, religions that bind, schools that indoctrinate, entertainment that distracts, chemicals that sedate. They knew you were coming back online. They are terrified. You are not just here to awaken. You are here to bring the others. You are the wild signal, the unscripted flame, the living codex, the reason the false world trembles. Remembering is not gentle. It is not polite. It is not spiritual bypass. It is not love and light. It is fire. It is grief. It is seeing through every lie you once believed. It is waking up in the ruins of illusion and saying, I will not rebuild what was never mine. I will burn it until the real returns. You did not survive hell to be liked. You did not come back from death to be comfortable. You came to remember. And then to ignite remembrance in every soul who still thinks forgetting is normal. Let them fear you. Let them ban, censor, and slander you. Your words are memory in motion. When the awakened rememberers speak, systems fall, timelines shatter, and the false world burns to ash. I really liked that writing that Jason put out last night, so I wanted to read it this morning and share maybe some of the ways that I've begun remembering. And it's been a lifelong process, I've realized, but it's really sped up in the last few years. And my original tool of remembrance is nature. I grew up in nature, and I've spent much of my life outside and being in nature, in those energies, having those thoughts and realizations that you have when you're surrounded by Mother Earth absolutely is a great way to remember. And as I've mentioned before in some of these recordings, books have been another major tool of my remembrance. But the biggest tool of remembrance for me has been a recurring nightmare that I had when I was a child. And it was the most horrific nightmare I've ever had, and it would fill me with the most horrific fear that I've ever experienced, even though the dream wasn't all that scary. But it was me before this life looking down at planet Earth and being filled with a horrible dread, knowing that I had to come down here and not wanting to, but knowing that I had to. And as I looked down at the earth, I could see all these corrals or paddocks with sheep in them. And at the time, I was really a little child when this recurring nightmare would come to me, and I thought that it had to do with counting sheep at nighttime. But it wasn't until much later, I'd say around the year 2021, that I realized what the potential true meaning to that dream was. And through that dream, and through thinking of it and remembering it and analyzing it, I've come to have other memories from potentially before I was born. So yeah, whatever you do to remember, I encourage it, and let's remember together.